So when you smash it, it's actually most oftentimes protected. But sometimes if you hit it hard enough, the brain hits the inside of the skull and it can actually get bruised. And if you hit it hard enough, it can actually swing back or rotate and get bruised on the other side of your brain. Secondly, when you twist your ankle or bang your knee, you might see some bruising or scrapes or swelling on the outside, but this isn't the case with your brain. It gets injured and nobody really knows. Thirdly, your brain is like mission control. It controls things like your balance, your mood, your sleep, your thinking, and your senses. So when it gets injured, there can be lots of things that can happen. So we discussed some of the classic ones before, like headaches or neck pain or balance problems or blurry vision. But you also might have some symptoms that you may not have felt before, like being in a fog, finding it hard to concentrate, feeling sad, or having lots of anxiety or worrying more than usual. You may even have trouble sleeping. Or maybe even just you're more sensitive to light or noise or just other people. Also, your brain holds on to lots of different files or memories. And sometimes when your brain gets rocked a bit, it's like a file cabinet that gets knocked over and the files get spilt onto the floor, and thoughts get scrambled, and sometimes the memory files just get lost, so you might not even remember the accident or even that afternoon. So now we know more about what a concussion is, I wanted to get you to think about three other things. So number one is we don't want to make things worse. We know because the brain is hidden. We can see if there's a fracture in your skull or a bleed, but we can't see a concussion even with some of the cool machines we have now, like CT scans or MRIs. And we know if you injure your brain before it is healed, things get much worse. So we follow a protocol, a kind of official procedure, and we call it return to activity. So what we want you to do is just start, if you have no symptoms or none of the things that I talked about at rest, then you can kind of go on to the next stage. And you can go for some light exercise like a jog, and if there's no problems there, you can go on to, if it was hockey, you could go skating. And then we allow you to be yellow shirted if there's no symptoms. So what I mean by that is that you can participate in a practice, but nobody can come into contact with you. And then if that works out, then you can go to a full contact practice. And if that works out, then you can return to play. So Sidney Crosby's gone through all these stages, and now we're just hoping that he can hit the final stage, which is return to play. But if you have any symptoms or any problems with any of these levels, you have to drop down to the level before, and that's where you can get stuck sometimes. So number two I wanted to talk to you about was it's very hard to know how you will do. So when you have a concussion, it's important to know that with all the kind of negative news we've been hearing about concussions, that actually 80 to 90% are back in 4 to 6 weeks. The tricky part, though, is it's hard to tell at the beginning. Sometimes people have kind of a light injury and they have lots of problems, and sometimes the reverse is true. So like any other injury, it can be a bit frustrating. So you do have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. The third point, and my final point, is about communication. About talking with your parents, teachers, coaches, trainers, and friends, because it's hard to see concussions. People presume you're okay. So you need to be upfront about how you're feeling. Things like being in a fog or being anxious can be hard to put a finger on. So you don't need to dwell on it, but you do need to be clear and honest about how you're feeling. So take care of yourself if you have a concussion. Your brain is you. Everything you have got good at, from riding a bicycle to playing soccer, is stored in there. All your memories, like a family trip or winning something, are stored in there. All your skills about figuring things out for school or even in life are built into your brain, so you want to keep them running like a Ferrari. So make sure you're clear to return to activity. Keep positive and share any concerns or questions you have with the people that care about you. And take care of that awesome brain of yours. Thanks.
So that covered a lot of the signs and symptoms and the stages and different things. But first we need to make sure that kids are back in the classroom, so there will be steps for them to get back to the classroom before they can get back to play. Most concussions resolve within a week or two. Some last longer, and then there will be accommodations made in the classroom if needed, and the kids are continued to be held out of the athletics until they're back to the classroom full time. The next on the handout just lists some of the signs and symptoms, but that's covered a lot already on the video, but the rest also is cognitive, and I read one article where even like musical instruments, they don't even want the kids attempting that. So not only no homework, no phones, no computer, not even musical instruments too. They just want complete rest for them to get back to the classroom and performance. And it may be symptoms that their classmates or teammates or you as parents notice. They're just not acting themselves. And you just have to be aware of that. Be like, oh yeah, is that something related to what happened in the game yesterday? Could be. Take them and get evaluated. It's better to be safe than sorry. There are some steps that we would follow on the back of your sheet. It lists the progression of what we would do. So we would start with stage 1 at the return to learn and then work our way through those 6 stages before going back to return to play. We want to make sure that there's no symptoms at that stage before moving on to the next one. If there are symptoms, we need to halt the progression down the stages and see what else needs to be done, but they also need to go back to resting until they can get through all of those stages. So the return to learn, home rest, then light mental activities, school part-time is stage 3, 30 to 40 minutes at a time, then 60 minutes, and just keep progressing up. There's always a possibility of making some adjustments in the classrooms to get them caught up with that too. Once they're finished with the return to learn, they'll start to play. Stage 1 is already accomplished by going through the return to learn stages, so they'll just jump right into stage 2. So just some walking, maybe around the gym or field, nothing too strenuous. Then they'll start some jogging and running, but no sprinting. Stage 4 would be more sprinting, jumping, things like that. Stage 5 would be back to full practice. Make sure they're tolerating that okay without getting any headaches, any dizziness, any cognitive changes that anyone's concerned about, and then back to full play. You as parents can say, I'm not happy with where we're at in this, I would like to wait. You can say that. It can all stop and the kids can get more time to get better. So I always think it's good to have a video, like a direct case history. It's not all of your football, soccer, basketball athletes that get injured. This is Tessa, and she's a cheerleader.
My name is Tessa. I'm 17 and I'm a junior. I'm a pretty good student and I've been cheering for about 7 years. I'm a flyer in cheer. And
That's her in the back.
one day at practice we were stunting and we were going to do a cradle. And when we cradled, something happened where my base didn't catch me and I fell on my head. And I don't remember it happening. I still don't remember what happened. My first memory, I remember hearing things. I remember my eyes were closed, and then I remember my coach just, I heard noises, but I couldn't really like figure out what they were saying. And then I remember my trainer Ashley coming in and making sure my neck was fine and sitting me up. And then I remember my coach saying that she called my mom.
I was at the school when the concussion happened. I was at a basketball game. When I got to practice, she was lying on the mat on her back. Upon evaluation, we cleared the C-spine, made sure that she had no numbness and tingling in the upper or lower extremities. I was then able to sit her up, start a concussion evaluation. Upon evaluation, she had a headache, she was complaining of pressure in her forehead, she had dizziness, blurred vision, and she was sick to her stomach. During the evaluation, she had delayed memory recall, but she was able to know where she was and the time and day of the week. Upon evaluation, we called her mom, who transported her to the emergency room for further evaluation. Tessa was referred to the Beaumont Concussion Clinic by the emergency room.
When I first saw Tessa in my clinic, I walked into the room and she was with her mom, and she was sitting on the exam table, and she didn't really look like she was in a lot of discomfort. She actually managed to smile, but when I looked at her post-concussion symptom scale, I could see that she was affected more than she looked. At the time, what I was told from mom and from Tessa that there was a lot of consensus, people weren't sure if she really lost consciousness or not. And it sounds like, the consensus after speaking with everybody was that she did not lose consciousness. But even though she was awake, Tessa has no memory of any of the events leading right up to the fall. And mom said that in the emergency room afterwards, she was speaking slowly, she was answering questions slowly, she was not herself at all. And in the emergency room, she was diagnosed with a concussion and discharged home. And her mom states that she really didn't feel that her daughter was back to herself for a full 24 hours, where she was lucid and able to understand what had happened. So when she came to see me, her symptoms were very typical of what I see in concussion. She had difficulty with concentration. It was right before school ended for Christmas break, so the positive part of all of that was that she was going to have a couple weeks off where she didn't have to be in school. So immediately I was happy to hear that.
After the holiday break, I was feeling much better. I could do pretty much everything. My focus still wasn't 100% there, but it slowly got back to where it was before. And in terms of cheer, I slowly progressed and focused on building my strength back up, building my endurance back up. And I slowly started with the steps back to cheering, and that started with stretching and increasing my heart rate, and then slowly back to tumbling and stunting again.
When I did Tessa's neurologic exam, it was normal. So when I was giving her discharge instructions to her and her mom, I asked that she drink a lot of fluids and maintain cognitive rest and complete physical rest. The only thing that she really could do was some gentle walking. When I sent her back to school, I gave her a return to learn program for her, which included dimming computer screens and fluorescent lighting in the classroom if needed. I also asked that the teachers give her maybe notes ahead of time before class started, or had someone help her take notes so that it was easier for her to pay attention in class and not have to take notes and focus on what the instructor was telling her to do. I ordered Tylenol or Motrin for her to take as needed because her headaches were intermittent and she didn't need to have something scheduled around the clock.
So also when Tessa came back, we wanted to make sure that she was ready to return to cheerleading activities, which included making sure she was stretched out because she hadn't done cheerleading exercises in over 3 weeks at that time. So that involved stretching, also cardio activity to make sure that she was ready for those long practices. We also did some reading to make sure that she was comfortable with that in classes, and then some saccade work, which was involving the rabbit on the screen.
When I saw Tessa at her follow-up visit a week later, she was feeling much better overall. She was still having very mild headaches that happened 1 or 2 times a day. She said that it would happen in school if there was a lot of noise or a high stimulus environment. She said that if she would go into a quiet room for about 20 or 30 minutes or a quiet area, the symptoms would go away on their own. So I didn't clear her at that visit to go back to sport because she was still having these mild headaches. I didn't see her again in clinic. I told her and her mom she could follow up with her primary care physician if she needed, but I did keep in contact with her return to sport through Ashley.
From the date of my concussion to when I returned to competing for cheer, it was probably about 5 weeks.
Once I got the email back from Ashley that Tessa had fully recovered and she had completed her steps to return to cheer, I signed her MHSAA form so that she could return to competition.
After my concussion, it was really hard for me to get back into the swing of things, but I'm really grateful for Ashley and Susan because they helped me realize how important it is to take care of myself and take the right steps back to returning to play. And now I'm happy and looking forward to my next season of sideline cheer.
So then if your student athlete is at practice, say there's an incident that happens, the coaches have available to them the folder, and it gives handouts of signs and symptoms of a concussion for them to send home. They'll also, you as parents will be getting a call as well. A lot of the schools, for high school I should say, do they call it impact testing. It's like a pre-concussion testing. Then once there's an injury, they retest them and see how they score with that. Generally, I think most of them do all of their freshmen, and then they repeat it as juniors. So then if there's a big significant difference between what they did at the beginning of the year and after the injury, then that keeps them out. And they need to pass that test also before they get to go back to play. So this fact sheet is on your handout. If you want to keep it, you guys are more than welcome to. Any questions? That's really about all I have. Thank you. Everybody have a great year.
Paperwork stuff, the gym is pretty cleared out. So it should be really quick to flow right
We just brought, are they just, I know,